Why are these people laughing? Welcome to Module 10. At last, we have a little bit of fun here. But, as with all other things, there's a serious purpose here. People laugh for a reason, and that's what we'll explore in these next couple of lessons. Now, again, the Encyclopedia Britannica says, the incongruous is the essence of what's laughable, says William Hazlitt in 1819. Man is the only animal, he writes, that laughs and weeps, for he is the only animal that is struck between the difference what things are and what things ought to be. And that's what we appreciate, that incongruity. And here's my essential description of laughter. You laugh, you must understand the underlying truth in a particular skit or joke or situation. So if you have enough understanding about what it is and what it should be, then you can be struck by the absurdity or the irony that follows as the punchline. We'll illustrate that. Comedy depends on appreciation of the truth, topical, universal, whatever it is. Tony Curtis, Marilyn Monroe, Jack Lemmon were funny in Some Like It Hot. Charlie Chaplin in 1940, September 1940, when Hitler was at its most powerful in Europe, he came out with this movie, The Great Dictator. And it happened very simply because somebody told him, you know, Charlie, if your mustache were a little square, you would look just like Hitler. So he created this film about mistaken identity and a little Polish barber. And then the terrible totalitarian named Adenoid Henkel instead of Adolf Hitler. And you see, instead of a swastika, he has a double cross. You get it? He's going to double cross the people. Chaplin said later, it's a brilliant film and has many terrific moments in it. Chaplin said if he had known how terrible Hitler was and what he was doing to the Jews at the time, he would not have made that movie or released it. But he did release it, and it was satirical, powerful humor at the time in advance of the United States' entry into the war. Now, some people are just kind of crazy people. Soupy Sales was heir to the baggy pants comedian of the burlesque era, and he was a character. You could look him up on YouTube. Chevy Chase began his national popularity in 1975 with Saturday Night Live, went on to star in a lot of movies, and was a very funny guy. Marty Feldman, who's pictured with his peculiar bug-eyed look here in Young Frankenstein, played the role of Igor, actually Igor, as he pronounced it. So in order to appreciate it, you've got to know a little something about the comic, the comedian, and you've got to be mentally agile, or at least awake, to catch this. Because again, the underlying truth and that absurdity or irony is the payoff. Now, Johnny Carson used to always say this, and I think it's worth repeating here. A comedian says funny things, a comic says things funny. Dr. Irwin Corey, who characterized himself as the world's leading authority, was big on malapropisms. Malapropisms is the use of the wrong word, and yet it's funny because it's almost like the word itself. Amos and Andy there used to be, of course, a saying in World War II, let's synchronize our watches. Amos and Andy changed that. They said, let's Simonize our watches. Well, you see, it sounds enough like it, so it makes it funny. Johnny Carson was a gifted comedian. He knew how to tell jokes, and he was really a remarkable character who was on for about 30 years on television in one particular show, The Tonight Show. So, the difference between a comedian saying funny things and a comic says things in a funny way. For example, there was a gifted performer in the 20th century named Billy Gilbert. And Billy Gilbert was a pretty good actor, but a comic actor. And later in his life, he developed a specialty of the sneeze. He would say something, and he was always just that close to a sneeze. In the same way, Foster Brooks in the late 20th century was a comedian who pretended always to be drunk. And you can look him up on YouTube. I'm not going to feature him. Billy Gilbert and Foster Brooks and Irwin Corey. Now, Bud Abbott and Lou Costello worked together for a long time. Now, let's go to where the credit begins, to the writers. Carl Reiner just died this summer at age 99. What a gifted life he led. He and Woody Allen at one time both wrote for Sid Caesar, as well as Larry Gelbart. Neil Simon is pictured here with the glasses at the far right. He has written so many wonderful plays. Will Rogers was a naturally funny guy who appeared on the Ziegfeld Follies back early in the 20th century. Now, shtick is a wonderful word in comedy. It's derived from the Yiddish, and it means a little bit of business, a little thing that's associated with a comedian or a comic. Early in his career, Steve Martin used to come out, and he'd come out pretty straight with this white suit on and his banjo often, and he'd have an arrow going through his head, or he'd have these bunny ears, and he wouldn't say anything. It's just a kind of business. It's just letting you know that he is funny and he's going to be funny, and why should you be struck by the absurd? Steve Martin is a very funny guy and has had success in film and movies and plays and all kinds of things, and certainly his concert career, and we're lucky to still have him with us. Shtick, a little bit of business, a little thing he does. Schlemiel is another Yiddish word, and there's the old joke about the guy walking along the street and he steps on a banana peel and he slips and he falls. Somebody asked Charlie Chaplin about that. He said, "Mr. Chaplin, how would you direct that?" Because Chaplin also directed quite a bit. And he'd say, "Here's what I'd do. I'd take a picture of the guy from a distance walking down the street. I would show in his path the banana peel that he doesn't see. I would cut back to the guy, I would cut back to the banana peel, and then just before the banana peel, he would fall right into an open sewer hole." That's funny. That's the unexpected payoff. That gets the audience leaning in a certain way. But that was Chaplin. So Schlemiel is something bad that happens to other people. And we laugh, just like Abbott and Costello, because we're too smart for that. That's not going to happen to me. Oh man, I'm glad that didn't happen to me. So shtick and Schlemiel, a couple of Yiddish words here. Now, speaking of Chaplin, Chaplin was a kind of character that's a classic comedic character, the sad sacks, the people that don't wear a smile on their face. They wear the frown of disappointment. And everything that happens to them is sort of tragic in its own way, but funny as we look at it. Certainly Buster Keaton, shown behind bars here, was a very gifted comedian. But he had that stone face. And it was, you never know what's going to happen to me next. Why don't you just watch and see how I react? Emmett Kelly was the famous tramp clown back in the 20th century. He was the same sort of character. And Charlie Chaplin playing the little tramp here. Now, George Gobel is somebody you probably haven't heard of. He was a comedian who stood up and told jokes, but he was the same kind of thing, a little guy, a shy guy, and things were always happening to him. So sad sack, it's a type of comic character. Now, comedy in the 20th century, there was a great deal of it that came from very gifted Jewish performers. Red Buttons, Jerry Lewis, Sid Caesar, Zero Mostel, Rodney Dangerfield. And what happened in the 1920s or 1960s is that Jewish people who lived in New York City would go up to the Catskills, and there were a whole series of resorts that just catered to them, because there were a lot of resorts in New York and throughout America who would not accept Jewish people. So they went to these resorts. They'd spend long weeks in the summer because it was cooler up there. They had great stage shows, dinner shows, dances, as well as the outdoor activity. And all of these five guys were products of the Borscht Belt. Now, borscht, as you probably know, is a Jewish beet soup, a Russian beet soup. That's how it got its name, the Borscht Belt. The gift of the Borscht Belt was that it gave these people a chance to practice their craft. And you know enough about stand-up and improv and all that to know that good performers have to be in front of audiences, have to know how the timing works, have to know how the material works, have to know how the continuity, one joke from another goes, when to change. This is a typical Borscht Belt joke told by Rodney Dangerfield. My wife ain't too bright. One day our car got stolen. I said to her, "Did you get a look at the guy?" She said, "No, but I got the license number." Now, you should be laughing, at least with some pain. This is typical. It's typical of stupid wife jokes. And these were very popular in the 20th century. Gracie Allen, George Burns, she played the ditzy wife. Comedians who were typically male had a lot of jokes at the expense of their wives and at the expenses of their mother-in-laws. Those were sort of built in to comedy in those days. Obviously, it was her car, so what good does it do that she got the license number? You got that. That's absurd. But I can't tell you why these guys were so funny. And I don't know that it has anything to do with their faith heritage of being Jewish. Although some people say that it does. They had so much suffering in their lives, they had to develop this defense mechanism to laugh. But these were five gifted performers. Now I want to talk to you for just a minute about the lunatics, the genius lunatics. Jonathan Winters was very big in the 20th century. And he was a man, literally, who did spend time in a mental institution. Jonathan Winters had a devil as well, and he drank for a long time. I have a very good friend of mine now who's in his 90s, who's a public relations guy, Jack McGuire, who used to represent some of the fancy nightclubs in Chicago. And he would go out with Jonathan Winters, and they would drink together, and they were great friends. And he said he was just as crazy as you could possibly imagine. The lucky part is, for my friend Jack and for Jonathan Winters both, they did choose sobriety and stayed with it for a long time. Now, a man cut exactly in Jonathan Winters' cloth a generation later was Robin Williams. Unfortunately, Robin Williams is dead now, no longer with us, but you've seen his work on television. This guy was just inspired, maniacal, just a lunatic, just absurd, gifted with voices, gifted with circumstances. He was just really good. And for a while, Jonathan Winters appeared on a television series that Robin Williams headlined called Mork and Mindy. That was pretty funny.